Okay, y'all, we are back. Welcome to the If I'm Being Honest podcast. Another week, here we are. I think I'm gonna start doing weekly check-ins with y'all, especially if I haven't done a solo episode in a minute, because this is the first solo episode of the podcast. Hello, thank you. Can we get a round of applause? Thank you. This is definitely going to be a new segment, something that I want to implement. Can I say this episode was hard, very hard to film. I was very scared, very nervous, just my own thoughts only. I'm very conversationalist, but for some reason recording it wasn't the same as just talking to myself. It felt like I'm letting the world in on my thought process, and something about that is, I don't know, scary. Definitely let me know how we think, how we feel. We're going to try new things. As always, thank you for listening. Go back and watch the previous weeks if you haven't. Run up the audios, run up the YouTube. If you are listening on YouTube, go on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, listen to the YouTube. We're working on it, guys. So we're getting into a flow, into a schedule. New things are coming bigger and better. I'm gonna be dropping a lot of episodes coming up recently in the next couple weeks before the new year. So definitely be looking out for that. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. Okay, guys, welcome back to the If I'm Being Honest podcast. Today is a solo episode. Yeah, scary, very scary, guys. But the title of today's episode is If I'm Being Honest, I Love Me. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. For some context, I was listening to the song, right? And I'm gonna tell y'all, this is literally what the episode's about. Go listen to the song. It's called I Love You Boy by Russ. Okay? Russ. Okay, I Love You Boy by Russ. And at first, when I listened to the song, I was like, is this gay? Like, was so confused. I was like, what is really going on? But when it came down to it, right, something I realized was the song he was talking about himself. And so that inspired me. So we're gonna jump right into the lyrics. So he starts off, it says, you grew up in an environment that was hostile and got wild. Arguments you heard as a small child had an effect that left you with a lot to undo. Let's get into it. So he's speaking on his childhood trauma, right? And from the lines I'm getting, it doesn't necessarily have to be abusive. I think we need to really get out of this narrative that if you're not being abused, you don't have trauma. Just because nobody put their hands on you doesn't mean that you don't have trauma. Just because you grew up and you felt loved, that doesn't mean that you don't have trauma. Trauma can come from different ways. Seeing your parents argue, that can cause you trauma. You know what I'm saying? Going through divorce, that can cause you trauma. Whatever it is, right? So as a child, he's saying that he grew up in an environment that wasn't safe, and therefore that was his trauma, right? And I think that it's so important that we kind of break away from the narrative that, oh, if I have trauma, that means I'm trying to act like, oh, that's my excuse for everything. And like, no, that's not how that works. Recognizing trauma simply just means that I understand that certain things that happen in my life play a factor into how I think, how I act, how I function, how I process, how I feel, my attachment styles, my everything. Simply recognizing those learned habits and those patterns because of trauma, that's not an excuse. It's the first step to healing. I always say recognizing is the first step to removing those bad habits. You have to recognize them, right? You cannot stop being a bad person. You can't start to change if you don't realize that, right? You can't heal a wound that you don't know is there. That's why we go to the doctor, because if you don't know what's wrong with you, how can you have the right medication in order to combat that? So that line was powerful to me because he said arguments you heard as a small child. So that doesn't mean that he was going through abuse himself, but just simply things that influenced him, simply as simple as having an unstable household that left you with a lot to undo. And I think I see that a lot of times. People will have parents that have on and off relationships. They never saw a healthy family in their life or time or anything like that, and now their relationships, how they handle themselves or how they feel about themselves, their own self-esteem be affected because simply of things that they watch, right? And that's a whole different topic on how, you know, our childhood and the environment that we grow up in affects us. But let's just go on to the next line. The next line said, there's a wound in your heart, survival mode, you traumatized, I love you more than before. So that's the sample. I love you more than before is the sample, right? So this is where we start to get into the whole theme, right? I love me. But what does that mean? It said there's a wound in your heart, survival mode. A lot of times we don't realize that we're operating off of straight survival instincts, right? Defense mechanisms, things that we learned in order to protect ourselves, whether it's our last episode, people pleasing, You didn't watch that? Go watch that. Whether it's people pleasing and shrinking yourself in order to kind of avoid confrontation, whether it's, shutting down and closing off your own emotions because you don't know how to handle that, whether it's being overly sensitive, whether it's simply pushing away things that are good for you because you have trust issues, whatever it is, a lot of times we operate off of trauma. We operate off of that survival, the things that we're just doing simply because it's what we've learned and what we've known to do. You don't know how to do anything else. You know what I'm saying? There's really a stigma around, oh, people are toxic because they want to be toxic. No, a lot of times people that are toxic have their own trauma and they operate off of only what they know. You can't do anything different than what you've been showed. If you was only showed hatred and verbal abuse, why do you think that that person is doing that to you? Obviously, they're gonna repeat and pour out what they know, what they saw, right? That they didn't really have control over. They didn't really have control into what shaped them into who they are, because they become a whole different person simply because of trauma. And I'm not saying that, abusers or anybody, toxic people, that doesn't give them any slack. Absolutely not. But we gotta stop thinking that a lot of times people do things to us. And I remember I went through that so bad. It was so bad, guys. I kid you not. I used to think that the whole world was happening to me, that everything was revolving around me, and that everybody just wants to hurt me, and that I just deserve all of this pain, and I must just have to deserve this treatment because there's no way that every single person comes into my life and hurts me. But one thing I'll never forget, a quote that I heard somebody say, is people don't do things to you, they do things for themselves and don't think of you as collateral damage. And that is so true. People don't do things to you. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, nobody's saying, I'll use myself, okay, I'm gonna lie to Dana and destroy her life and hurt all her feelings. I'm gonna manipulate her. I'm gonna, 9 times out of 10, nobody's thinking like that. There's some wicked people in the world that genuinely just want to hurt you. Not saying they don't exist, because they do. But a lot of times when we feel that deceit and that pain and that hurt that comes from a relationship or friendship, a family member, somebody that you were close with, that you thought had that love, right? Not saying that love was a lie, because we know love is an action as well as a feeling, so their feeling may have been real or it may not have, but the action definitely wasn't there. But that deceit, because you thought what was there doesn't align with what they did, it doesn't match. Why would they hurt me like that? I thought that we had that connection. I thought we were here, you know what I'm saying? That deceit, that feeling simply just comes from the fact that somebody did something to you that doesn't really align with what they've been showing you. My point is, when we sit back and recognize and remove ourselves from the situation, you can truly see that a lot of times the things that people do have nothing to do with you. They're not being malicious and intentional, and that your relationship is real. They genuinely sometimes do care about you. They just care about themselves more. So it's not that everything was fake. It's not that you were naive or that you were dumb or you shouldn't have trusted them or anything like that. Sometimes that do be the case. Now we need to hold ourselves accountable, but a lot of times we get caught up in the fact that what we thought was there and we realized that it wasn't. But that's not necessarily the case. It's just the fact that that person was going through something that trumped their view for you. You know what I'm saying? And their own trauma, their own hurt, their own defense mechanisms, their own habits, all these things. Those are words you're going to hear me say a lot this episode. But the things that they're going through just took more precedence over you and your feelings, which should never be the case. You know what I'm saying? In no relationship with somebody, whatever, they should not be hurting you simply just because they're going to put themselves first. Unless, we know how those things, sometimes you do have to put yourself first. But in a toxic cycle, right, you should not be in relationship and contact and friendships and those types of relationship with nobody who does not care, does not consider your feelings, right? So not saying that that's okay, but when you say to yourself, you're not doing it on purpose, it's something bigger than me, it relieves that off of your shoulders, so where you can kind of realize that it's not personal. And when you stop taking things personal, guys, it truly does give you so much more freedom. I don't even know how to explain it, because I remember I used to hate people tell me, don't take it personal. Stop taking things personal. Because I'm sitting here, I'm like, how am I gonna not take it personal? Like, you did it to me. It was personal when you did it to me. It was personal when you lied to me. It was personal when you manipulated me. It was personal when you didn't care about my feelings. I get that. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty personal, right? Our relationship was personal. So how I let you into the deepest parts of me. You saw me in my ups and downs. You know what I'm saying? All that type of things. I poured my love, I poured my time into you. We was friends. We was cool. We was whatever we was, right? I did all that So how are you gonna tell me that after you did what you did, that's not personal? I get it. You know what I'm saying? Trust me, I do get it. But when you realize that there's a lot of things bigger at play, whether it's spirits, whether it's their background and their trauma, whether it's simply just they're going in a different direction from you and y'all are growing apart, a lot of times once you realize that it's not personal, it allows you to forgive. And that forgiveness is something that is a process, it's a different episode. But that forgiveness is crucial. You have to forgive somebody else in order to forgive yourself. And what do I mean by that? After somebody hurts you, yeah, you can move on from what they did to you, but what you can't really move on from is your role in it. Oh, I chose to keep this person in my life. I chose to not see the signs. I chose to XYZ, right? And so that accountability sometimes can turn into excess guilt on ourselves, and we tend to create our own trust issues within ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to make decisions anymore. How can I trust myself to be right if I really was sure, in something and then it turned out to be wrong? Something backfired in me and I invested my all into it and I was 100% confident and I ended up getting blindsided. How can I trust myself to make another choice again? How can I trust myself to get into another relationship? How can I trust myself to be another friend to somebody else again? How can I trust myself to find another job? How can I trust myself to anything, right? A lot of times we can't forgive ourselves because we did not forgive that other person. And even when you do forgive that other person, it still leaves you with that forgiveness that you have to do for yourself. A lot of times you carry that weight of we feel like a failure, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times that's very prevalent in people that are in that caretaker role, you know what I mean? Whether you're a teacher or whether you're a parent or whether you're just one of those friends in the friend group that just tends to always be there for the next person, right? A lot of times we tend to carry that guilt, and I see it in my family. I see it in my life, and I dealt with it very recently. When you carry that guilt on yourself, you feel like a failure, you're going to try to do things that overcompensate to try and fix that. When you are trying to prove to yourself constantly, oh, I'm right, or I can do something right, or I'm not dumb, or I'm not this, or I do have good judgment, or I can have discernment. When you're constantly trying to prove that to yourself by overcompensating, it does not help the next person. It doesn't help you either, because either it works and you get that temporary ego boost, right? And you have to keep doing it and keep doing it in order to get that more. It's because you're not actually healing what's inside and you're just giving yourself little dopamine rushes. Or it doesn't work and you feel even worse about yourself and you feel even more like a failure, right? Let's just take a job, right? Okay, I got laid off from my job. I didn't do good enough. I don't feel good enough. I feel rejected, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do all I can to get the next job. I'm going to interview. I'm going to do this. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to do everything they want me to do, right? So I can prove to myself that I'm worth something, right? Then you don't get the job. Then what? You feel even worse. Or say you do get the job. Okay, now you're constantly chasing that. You're chasing that. Okay, maybe I'm not worthless. Okay, maybe I do have some value. Maybe I can get hired, right? You're constantly chasing that. And it's even more prevalent emotionally. I just use job as something that's materialistic because money, right? A lot of times we do connect ourselves and our worth to how much money we make, but that's a different topic. I just use something material, but emotionally, that's the line of thinking that it goes through. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. Next line, we're gonna jump, right? And I kid you not, y'all should listen to the song. We're gonna jump to the next lyric that I really want to put some stress on, because this is the main topic of the episode, right? The manifestation of unhealed trauma. The manifestation of it. What does that look like? So he said in the song, the monster you created to protect the kid in you is hard to manage. Supreme confidence, deep crippling anxiety. The damage that has been done is explicit. An abusive inner critic. Nothing that you do is ever really good enough. The you in this verse right here is himself, right? The monster you created to protect the kid in you is hard to manage. So when you don't heal from the trauma, your inner child is still hurting. When you didn't have that parent to protect your inner child, or you had that relationship that broke your inner child again, or you went through anything in life that triggered your insecurities, that crippling insecurity that he just talked about, right? That creates a different person. Sometimes it can manifest in a way that you're somebody that you're not, in order to protect the real you that's hurting on the inside. A lot of times we see that in men. It's very common in men. Statistics show that DID or schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder, those are more common in men. Why? Because society and their standards and, how that works with not dealing with their emotions and all those things like that. So in order to protect the actual broken parts in them, right, they become that hard, tough exterior. I don't know if y'all have ever been in a relationship with a man like that, where you see he has this really tough outside and then you realize that that's not really the person person that he is. That's just how he presents to the outside world, right? And that it has to break down those walls in order to get to that person that's actually really hurt on the inside. Is actually still a good person, right? I don't know if you've ever met anybody like that, but it's very common, especially in Black men. But hey, anyways, right? He said the damage that's been done is explicit. So a lot of times we don't realize if you are the person that has created this persona in order to protect your inner child, you don't realize that everybody can see that you're hiding behind that mask. And you are not playing the tough person. We can all see that you're hurt, right? It says an abusive inner critic. That's your own mind. One thing I say, guys, one of the scariest things to me of all time is when your mind isn't even a safe place for you. I've been there. A lot of times when you're depressed or things like that, and you go through something, you self-isolate, right? Because you pull away from other people and you're simply just in yourself. But when your own mind isn't even a safe place for you, it's a scary thing, guys. For all my spiritual people, right? Scripture do say that blessed is he whose conscience has not condemned him. And I just bring that in simply because I think that's really powerful. When your own conscience is telling you to give up, when your own conscience is telling you it's over, or that you're worth nothing, that's what you start to believe in your mind. You start to criticize yourself. It says nothing you ever do is really good enough, is it? Right? That's the thoughts that we have in your mind. So he's in the lyrics, he's saying the thoughts that he would literally go through, right? Simply because of the manifestation of the unhealed trauma, right? That he explained earlier on, the environment that he grew up in, the arguments that he heard, right? The pain that he was left with, right? The next line says, you didn't get validation from your dad. I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let that sit. The next couple lines, he starts to explain his own self in the industry, right? You didn't get validation from your dad, so you replaced him with the industry and started to rap. You wanted praise and acknowledgement, picked a profession that people who look like you don't get, and the range of accomplishments being ignored, authoritative outside force that you yet again apparently aren't good enough for. So you find something to replace that validation with, right? And you're chasing that, right? For him, he said that was the industry. It's a whole different topic about the insides and outs of the industry and the vanity in that and everything. He said you wanted praise and acknowledgement and picked a profession that people who look like you don't get. So because you didn't have that father or even mother or even anything to build that in you, right? Now you're looking for outside sources for the outside validation, right? And so all the accomplishment that you're doing in this industry, right? All the things that you do have right at the end of the day, because it's a system that's made against a lot of people, as we know. What's my favorite word, y'all? The patriarchy. A lot of times things are built against us, whether you're a woman, whether you're black, whether you're brown. You're not the famous words, the straight male, right, guys? You're not one of those. The system's made against you. So at the end of the day, good is never good enough. And that continues to go back into the inner critic that he was saying in the first verse, right? Continuing for the crippling insecurity, right? Continuing to the outside image that is not actually the real you, all because you're broken on the inside. And he's really breaking down the next lines. He said, it all fooled you, right? Your need to be liked and feel wanted consumed you. That's why you call a chick every night to come do you, only to be left feeling less than before. Didn't have the tools to manage stress. You were at war with yourself. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's crazy to me because a lot of times men and women do it, but you know, when you don't have that self-esteem, all right, you try and hop from person to person to find that, and it literally does not leave you any more fulfilled than you was before. It actually leaves you less fulfilled because as you hop from person to person and you're looking for something that you're continuously not finding, you end up looking at yourself and you're like, why does nobody want to stay? Why does it not fix, right? So you're literally not getting what you're looking for, and then it continues the cycle. He said you didn't have the tools to manage your stress, so that became your tool. That's how people fall into this cycle, and that's how we have hookup culture and all that type of stuff. We have people that just have rosters just for fun because it's the validation that they didn't get. I know y'all know somebody like that. They always have a rotation. They always have a roster, and they don't even like those people, but it's the dopamine rush. It's the validation that comes from it, right? And it says you're at war with yourself. You need love. So at the end of the day, that broken child from the beginning of the verse, that person's just looking for love. He goes through the different defense mechanisms and the different ways that it all manifests for him. So it came from his job and seeking industry validation, right? And becoming this person, this hard exterior shell, and, you know, going through different women. He goes through these different ways on how he himself experienced that, all because of what I labeled as a manifestation of unhealed trauma. So the next line, he gets into another way, right? He says, drinking to forget that being you is not enough. Now, I like the way that he phrased that because a lot of times that's how we feel. If you connect it all back to the beginning of the song, it's all about how a lot of times you don't feel good enough. That lack of validation, that lack of esteem, right? That inner virtue is not there. You don't have that strength within yourself, right? And so it says overcompensating. A lot of people turn to alcohol and drugs, right, to kind of numb that, right, and to escape, even though it really doesn't help, as we all know. It's all temporary. Same way the validation was temporary, the woman was temporary, in the industry, the next hit, the next blow up, that was all temporary, right? Self-esteem is not transactional. If I do this, then I'll feel like this. That's not how that works. Trust from someone who goes through that, right? It's not how that works. You know, you truly have to dig deep in yourself and try and find that. And there's no transactional, oh, once I get this, I'll be happy. Once I do this, I'll be happy. Once I achieve this, I'll be happy. Once I get the career, I'll do it. Once I get the husband, I'll do it. Once I have my kids, I'll do it. It'll fix it. I'll be happy. No. It's nothing external that can fix things that are internal. The next verse, he says, trying to prove that you're worthy of approval you weren't shown in your home. So it all comes back to how he started in the beginning of that unsafe environment, right? Doing all these things to prove to yourself and other people. You don't have to prove to other people. It's something that you have to find in yourself, and then it will be seen and radiated and respected. Then he says, I'm sorry that I ever left you all alone. So that brings it back. Who was he talking to right there? He's talking to himself. He's talking to his inner child. I'm sorry that I left you all alone. And then he goes into the I love you more. He's healing his own inner child. He's loving his own inner child, the person that went through all those things, right? So let's sum it. This is how he says it at the end. He says, your character, you proved that by sharing your success and your blessings. But when you hurt, we hurt. So the you here is his inner child. When the inner child hurts, we hurt. If you're a grown person, even if you're not, the child in you, when that hurts, when that's triggered, when something happens that affects that person in you, that reminds you when you have that trigger, right? Both of y'all. The healed version of you hurts as well, right? It says breakdowns mean that it's time for a rebirth. So you carried me as far as you can go. Now it's time to say goodbye. Before I leave, you should know that I love you more than before. We have to learn how to love the person that carried us here. How to love that person, but also learn when it's time to let her go. The person that may have been irrational, the person that may have been having trust issues, the person that may be acting crazy, the person that may be bipolar, the person that may be broken, the person that may be angry, the person that may be whatever it is, right? They took you as far as you can go in your journey. They brought you here and they dropped you off. So you have to learn to love that person. They did the best that they can to forgive your inner self. Love that inner self, right? But know that that doesn't serve you anymore. The broken parts of you, that doesn't serve you anymore. They carried you as far as you can go up the stream. You have to find that spiritual leadership for the next part of you, right? You have to follow something. If you can't just be out here just in the wind, right? There has to be something that's your guiding force. Your morals have to come from somewhere. And you have to find that within yourself. Find that within faith. Find that within something where you can project your next path. So you can walk that journey, because that's where I'm at currently. That's where I'm at right now. It said, breakdowns mean it's time for a rebirth. So once that child in you, with all the defense mechanisms, right, in the song, whether it was the drinking, whether it was the partners, whether it was the job, whether it was the outside image that wasn't the real you, all that stuff, once that breaks down, you're left with nothing. So you have to rebuild. You have to become the new person. You have to become bigger and better. And that's literally all that we strive for. I truly believe that's why God puts us through things. He can break down all the other things that we're gonna try. No, he doesn't want you to turn to drugs to try and make it feel better. No, he doesn't want you to find your worth in other people. No, he doesn't want you to chase the bag because that's what's gonna make you feel better, because it's not. That's not what he wants for you. And that's why we go through things in life, chat. And if you don't believe in God, then I don't know what to tell you in this segment, but for everybody who do out there, that's why he does it, because he's gonna strip down everything that is not going to work, so you can have that rebirth, as it says, right? So you can start on that path, on that new journey to create this new person, to become the new person, the new woman, the new man, right? And that's why the title of the episode is, If I'm Being Honest, I Love Me, because you have to love all parts of you. You have to learn to love all parts of you, even the parts of you that are no longer a part of you, because they took you here. Nah, you are not proud of your past. Nah, you don't rep that I used to be a crip, whatever. Point is, right? Now you're not proud of yourself that you was stealing. Now you're not proud of yourself that you was a liar. Now you're not proud of yourself that you was a cheater, you was a homewrecker. Now you're not proud of that. But it all happened so you can be here in order to take your next steps forward on the journey. And then for that person, you gotta be thankful for them in some type of shape or form. You cannot hate yourself for the person that you used to be. No, you can't be that person no more. We're better than that. We're past that. But you can't hate yourself for the person you used to be, because if you continue to be stuck in that cycle and you continue to beat down on yourself for the things that you used to do, you're never going to move past that. You're never going to move past that if you never let go of that. Once you hold yourself accountable for that and you say you're not that person anymore, you have to let go of that. You cannot continue to bash yourself down for things that you used to do and the person that you used to be, because you're not that person anymore. You have to learn to walk in the newness and the uprightness, right? And people around you, it's going to take a long time. You know, if they saw you and you used to be a liar and now you're no longer a liar, it's going to take them a minute to realize that you're changed. It's going to take them a minute to realize that you're not that person anymore, right? And it's not going to be an automatic change, but when you feel that change, eventually it's going to follow. But it's not going to happen if you continue to hate yourself, which is why I say the title of the episode, guys, go listen to that song. It really is a great song. It has so many different spiritual symbolisms in it, and I just think that honestly, like, it does truly signify so much. I'm gonna try and wrap this up because it's been a long episode, guys. Really go listen to the song. Learn to love yourself. Heal your inner self, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know if we like the solo episode format or if we wanted a panel. Let me know if we want to interview on this topic so we can see somebody else's journey with their inner child and their inner self and their healing and the new person that they are. Rebirth, right, guys? Redeem the time, guys. Okay, the time that you have now, redeem it. So don't let moments just slide past you. Let me know what we like, guys, what we do and don't. Thank you for listening to another week on the podcast. We might have a double drop this week, guys, so look out for that. With all that, I will wrap it up. And always remember, everything you need is in your DNA.